Okay, everybody, we've got ourselves another awesome episode of the Bionicle Inspiration Series today because we're going to be talking about nature-themed MOCs. So obviously this is taking a bit of influence from the current round of the Bio Cup. Be sure to check the links in the description below if you want to join the Bio Cup, there's still time. But also, if you're like, I don't have any plans to enter the Biocup or anything, it's still nice to look at some nature MOCs. And the 4 MOCs that we've got today, I think they're actually quite impressive, and there's certainly a lot that we can learn from them to teach us a bit about building and stuff, and give us some tips and tricks and advice to make our MOCs even cooler, and maybe give us some inspiration in some other places as well, which is what we do here on the show. So whether you're entering the Biocup or not, hopefully this has something for you in it. Let's begin with the very first nature-themed MOC that we've got today. This is by our boy Patrick Biggs, and this MOC here is called the Arrival of Spring. So this is fantastic. Immediately, the color scheme for this MOC really grabs me because I love this just sort of solid black that kind of is so like visually different from the sort of like cherry blossoms that are on its sort of like hair or horns. I suppose it's more sort of like a wisp of hair. And it's also so different from the colors of the landscape beneath it there. And I love that because you really get the sense that this is some like creature of legend or like a legendary Pokemon or something crazy, you know. And yeah, I think the choice to have the color scheme be so distinctly different from the landscape there is really fitting. And I think that's really interesting too with this, it's like this with a few of these MOCs in this episode today. The idea of having a nature-themed MOC actually almost be in contrast to nature. Something really interesting with playing with that sort of juxtaposition between, I guess, the more sort of rigid and mechanical versus the, free-flowingness of nature. And, that doesn't mean you have to do robots versus nature or something like that, although you could. That's a cool idea. I do like seeing that, just colors or ideas that are just very different from nature and then putting it in nature and seeing what comes up. That sort of contrast is fun to play with here, and I think it's done very subtly here, but it works very, very well. Something else I love is, I briefly mentioned it before, the cherry blossom leaves on the head there. So, of course, cherry blossoms are from Japan, and it does sort of signify the beginning of spring there. So obviously very fitting with the name here. And I think there's something about spring that really effectively encapsulates nature as a whole, And I don't know, I love the inclusion of a sort of cherry blossom inspired kind of color scheme or look here, not only because it fits with the sort of concept of this MOC, but there's something about it that seems so perfect for nature, and not that Patrick Biggs built this for the Biocup. None of these were built for the Biocup, but, if you're looking to do something like that, it's perfect for it, isn't it? And I think that's also something that's cool is the fact that, cherry blossoms are often so associated with spring and nature in that sense. Why not look towards your sort of myth and folklore or real things in the real world that could probably influence your MOC in some fashion? When you look at a lot of art in the real world, often some of the more prolific art takes heavy inspiration from all sorts of different things, whether it's like the Bible or myth and folklore or Greek and or Roman mythology or Egypt mythology or whatever, all sorts of different stuff. It often feeds into different art styles there. So certainly something to consider, whether that's, some ancient art that you want to study or look into, or Marvel movies, modern mythology, or just, I don't know, you saw a cool picture once on the internet, or, I don't know, you're walking down the street and a tree looked kind of cool and you're like, I want to build that, Definitely worth looking into other things in the real world, There's only so far you can go as to sort of working on your Lego skills and craft. Sometimes it's nice to just go out into the real world and see what's there and let that inspire you. So I like that here, that there's some real world application to this MOC that really does make it look pretty. Speaking of that too, there's a lot of beautiful flowing lines in this MOC, whether that's on the tail with these beautiful kind of wisps that lead up to the leaves, or the same thing that I spoke about before, sort of around the ears and the head there. And even just kind of the rest of the body, there's this beautiful sense of like sort of free-flowing motion, which kind of reminds me of like leaves blowing in the breeze, which again seems pretty appropriate for spring. So I love that Patrick has really paid attention to the sort of shape of the lines or the sort of motion of this MOC, because I think that too encapsulates nature. So yeah, even if it's something like that, maybe you want to build a MOC that just has sort of like line shape or just sort of way that it looks that sort of evokes a sense of nature in that sense. I think that's pretty cool. The base is fantastic. I love the fact that this guy's kind of running and creating these little sort of, I don't know, little discs of water or something like that. It doesn't say here on Instagram, but I do believe I was reading the comments on Flickr and Again, this is another late night recording. I unfortunately don't have time to read too in-depth on the Flickr there, but you can check the links in the description below and check it for yourself. I think this is taking some pretty heavy inspiration from actual stuff in the real world. So this might be inspired by a specific creature of sorts. I don't know. Patrick will, I'm sure, let us know. So whether or not that's an accurate thing or not, it's still cool. Still looks nice. It gives me this cool sort of mental image of it, causing these little ripples of water as it runs. I love that. So a lot to love about this. A beautiful system base to go with it. This is one of Patrick's best MOCs. I really do like this one. On to the next MOC now. This one is by Dark Nova 3529, and this is Draconic Tulipa Ballade, I guess so. Exotic, however you pronounce that. This is gorgeous. Nothing wrong with building some flowers or some sort of like real life stuff. You know, sure, you can build a cool humanoid character, a dragon, a lion, an elephant, I don't know, whatever. You can build animals, people, all sorts of stuff with Bionicle. Never forget you can build real-world objects or vehicles or whatever, you know. So I love this. I thoroughly enjoy this. It's great to see a really nicely designed flower here. And, you know, we're getting a few different Lego sets these days that are just straight up flowers and plants and stuff. So it's certainly something that can be a bit more in your field of vision, I suppose. But this is really well done. I love the choice of including some of those balloon pieces in white for the sort of top of the flower there. I think what's so cool about that is it's just, well, it's a really versatile piece. We've used them, or we've seen them be used, rather, in multiple episodes of the Bionicle Inspiration series. It's a very versatile, beautiful piece. And it's lovely to see in some of these images here that it sort of is a little bit more closed and then kind of opens up, and you can see some of the inside details there, you know, like you would with a real flower. So it's really, really pretty, and just a nice part use there. It looks beautiful. And speaking of a nice part use, I love the inclusion of these dragon wings. Now, these come from an Ninjago set specifically. It's a pretty recent Ninjago set, so if you would like to get some, they're probably still on the shelves wherever you live. They're beautiful. They're gorgeous. Such a beautiful, lovely piece here, and it's great to see them being used as sort of like large, leaves in this sense. So, yeah, brilliant piece. You know, dragon wings as leaves, fantastic idea. And I think these dragon wing pieces are so versatile and helpful, and Ninjago makes so many dragons these days, and the dragons are crazy because Lego will be like, sure, each dragon gets a brand new wing element, a brand new head design, and a couple other new beautiful pieces in different colors and things like that. It's crazy. So it's just the reason I kind of collect some of those dragons. I think they're awesome, and the pieces in them are always brilliant, especially the cloth elements. So pay attention to some of those cloth elements, specifically from those dragons. They're so versatile and so helpful, and we'll see another MOC next that uses some of them in some very nice ways. So pay attention to those cloth pieces. They're so helpful and perfect for MOCs like this that are nature-themed. I also love, too, the pot that this is in. I believe it's just a straight-up copy of the pot from the Orchid set. I don't know if he's changed up the insides or not, but it looks like it's essentially the same thing. And I love that. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. It works well. It's worked well in the Lego set. Why doesn't it, it'll work just as well here? And, you know, I kind of, it's not that I don't care about the pot, but, like, the main feature of this MOC is the flower itself. So why not just focus on that and do whatever for the rest, you know? I don't know if this was built for the BioCup specifically for this round, but even if it is, or even if it isn't, I still think that's a good thing to be thinking about. You know, you've got a limited time frame to be building for the BioCup. Nothing wrong with cutting a few corners like that and just taking the pot from the Lego set there and putting it in. It works, and if you're a little bit more strapped for time, you can do something like that. Why not? Works well. We'll move on to the next MOC in a second, but first, a quick announcement. Oh, hey there! So if you're a fan of the channel and you're hungry to watch more Ben Cossy videos, well, consider supporting me on Patreon. At the moment, there's over 30 hours worth of additional content, with way more on the way as new content is uploaded weekly. So for as little as $1 a month, you can have access to my Patreon podcasts, where I discuss all manner of Lego and non-Lego topics, and everything else in between. You'll also have access to my questions and answer videos, where you can ask me your questions and I answer them. And you'll also have access to my private Discord server, where you can have some nice chats with me and a very nice, friendly community. Also on Patreon, there's a whole bunch of other behind-the-scenes content that I'll be posting and all manner of other stuff. So there's a lot there to choose from. Additionally, there are also some exclusive videos on Patreon, like an additional tour of my collection that showcases some of the rarer and more obscure LEGO items that I have, as well as some other non-LEGO collectibles and items as well. So there's certainly a lot that you can have access to if you join the Patreon. So if you're interested, please consider supporting. There is a link in the description below, and your support is always appreciated. Thank you very much, guys. Move over to the next MOC. This is by the LEGO master himself, Jayfa, and this MOC here is called Nettle Drake. This is awesome. This is awesome. This was, this was built for an iron builder competition that he was building with someone else. Wasn't sure if this was built for a past episode of the Bio Cup. Not quite, but still built for a contest, more or less, anyway. So I love this. I love the idea of building a dragon that's like a plant dragon, you know? Really cool. And you've got all sorts of different dragons that can be themed off of different elements and stuff like that. They're scattered all across pop culture. So definitely a lot of ways that you can take inspiration in that sense. So I briefly mentioned before the cloth element pieces, and there's some more being used here. So these come from a different Ninjago Dragon set, and I think these are some of the coolest cloth pieces that LEGO's ever made. I have some in my hands right now. I don't know if you can hear it on the microphone there. Almost said camera. There's no visuals yet on BIS. Maybe in the future. Who knows? But this piece is so cool because on one side, which I imagine is the side we're seeing in these images here, it's this sand green color, which holding it in my hand, it's not really sand green. It's a bit darker. But it's a very beautiful, nice color. But you flip it around and it's almost this chrome gold. So it's a beautiful print just because it has that sort of pattern to it. But it's two beautiful colors just side by side like that on a sort of double-sided piece like that. It's brilliant. So it's a really unique cloth piece with some really unique colors. If you don't have some, I recommend getting them on Bricklink. That's what I did. I actually never bought this set. I remember just thinking about buying it, but I never did. They were in a Bricklink store at one point when I wanted to buy something, so I tacked them on. They're gorgeous pieces. I look forward to using them in a MOC. They're very cool. So yeah, it's great to see those being used so effectively here. There's something about them that seems so leaf-like or plant-like. It's beautiful. Speaking of leaves and plants and stuff, I love too how the tail's been done using a bunch of dark green Hero Factory shell pieces to kind of look like leaves or some sort of plant of sorts. It's just a clever design there, and it could be mistaken for spikes that you might see on a dragon's tail, but it also kind of works as, nature stuff. So that's really clever. And the bush on the end there too, that's clever. And we see another bush on the neck. And with the neck in general, there's just a bunch of the palm tree pieces sort of flowing out of it there. But what I love about it is there's something about kind of putting stuff on the neck of a dragon that I think just really completes it and makes it look amazing. Here's a frost dragon, just a picture that I took from the internet here. And, you can kind of see like ice crystals around its neck. And you immediately get the sense like, hey, it's a frost dragon, it's an ice dragon, whatever. And so I don't know, if you're building any kind of dragon, maybe that's just a good idea like that. Just put stuff around its neck that reflects the element that it has control of or that makes up its body or whatever. And you're probably going to convey it pretty well, So yeah, pretty clever idea just to kind of shove stuff like that around it. It not only looks cool, but I think it conveys the concept very nicely. So really, really nice. Love your work, Jayfa. On to the final MOC now. This one here is by Djokson, and this is Hermits Together. So I love this. There's something about this that, again, seems so appropriate to nature. There's that, that saying of nature finds a way, or plants find a way, or dinosaurs find a way. I think that's also a Jurassic Park quote. Anyway, but what's cool about it is I found this picture, which is more or less this MOC, with a hermit crab living inside an old pipe, or all sorts of different stuff. Hermit crabs can do that. They can just take whatever they think works well enough for a shell and use it as their home, which is cool and clever. Or you see, plants growing out of concrete or stuff like that. Nature is it's that when sometimes when you see like post-apocalyptic stuff, nature just like grows around buildings and things like that because it's a powerful force and it does what it wants. So it's cool to sort of see little elements of that where, like I said at the start of the episode, rigid and mechanical or human-made things interacting with nature, and where that sort of where the two kind of meet in that sense. It's just a fun little thing here, and a thing that kind of does happen in the real world too. So it's pretty cool. The little hermit crab designs here are very, very clever, using a few of those sort of tail pieces and other claws and stuff, and big old eyes that seem very appropriate for them. But the thing that kind of makes up, not quite their shell, but just sort of the sort of head and rest of the body there, these pieces are Knights Kingdom armor pieces that came in dark red, but they specifically came on this Exoforce set here, on the little sort of dark red mech, which was called Sentry 2, I do believe. So a lovely use of that piece, which, is pretty compatible with your Bionicle there, even though it's technically from a system set. But yeah, I think it rounds them off very nicely. So this pipe piece here, this comes from an old Duplo set here. And it's cool. It's an actual official piece. And of course, because it's Duplo, it's a lot bigger. So it works well here of looking more like an actual sort of realistic pipe. It's a very, very clever part use. And sometimes it's worth paying attention to Duplo there, because some of the weird, obscure pieces can be just awesome for your Bionicle MOCs, or any kind of MOC, really. So definitely worth having a look at Duplo now and then. I also love, too, the sort of like sandy details at the bottom here with little bits of coral with, again, some more beautiful system pieces there. The little hint and splash of color there with that coral really, really complements this MOC here. It's gorgeous. So lovely little detail there that I think really adds to the MOC. It's fantastic. So that's it for a bunch of nature-themed MOCs today. I hope you thoroughly enjoyed. Again, there's links in the description to all the MOCs that you saw in today's episode, so if you want to check out the other things that these builders have done, that's the place to do so. And of course, because this episode was posted extra early, that of course means that, hey, you'll still get an episode this weekend, so you get 2 episodes of Biss this week. Huzzah and hurrah. What's it going to be on? I haven't figured that out yet. I have figured that out yet, but I'm not telling you. You gotta wait and see. So yeah. Again, in the description below are links to my social media, so if you want to check out some of the stuff that I've got going on, that's the place to do so. Additionally, in the description are links to my Patreon, so if you want to, like you saw in the commercial before, get access to some exclusive additional content, that's the way to do so. Also, as well, in the description below is my PO box, so if you want to send anything my way, that is a thing that you can do, but only if you want to. There's no obligation to do so. Oh, and of course, if you want to submit anything to the show, you can submit it through the submission email that's currently on your screen right now. It's also in the description below if you want to copy and paste it. Submit whatever you want. Doesn't matter. Send it to the email, and I'll consider putting it in a future episode of the Bionicle Inspiration series. Also, a big thank you to Ezreal, the Blue Moon Mockers, who helped me pick some of these MOCs for this episode today while I was at work, because I'm a busy guy, and it's really helpful when stuff like that happens. So, hey, if you're ever like, hey, Ben, I found some cool MOCs. Maybe you could use these for an episode. Feel free to email that to me or something, because I do appreciate that. That's always very helpful. And Ezreal's done that a bunch. He's a top lad, so be sure to follow him. He's a lovely guy. He's a mod on the Discord server. He's just a standout bloke. He's good. Anyway. Thank you very much for listening, guys. I hope you very much enjoyed. Happy building. Bye for now. And if you've entered the Bio Cup or planning to enter the Bio Cup, best of luck. Thanks. Bye for now.